The ball rolls across midfield one final time before Germany wins possession again, and within seconds the stadium begins to feel strangely familiar. Not because of the scoreline or the opponent standing across from them, but because everyone watching has already seen this sequence unfold several times before. A quick interception, two perfectly weighted passes, a runner appearing exactly where nobody expected him, and suddenly another German attack explodes toward goal with frightening precision, leaving defenders scrambling backward, while commentators struggle to explain why every movement looks so effortless. It almost feels scripted, as though 11 players already know what will happen 10 seconds before it actually does. And perhaps that is exactly why the rest of the football world has quietly begun asking the same uncomfortable question. Has Germany become unstoppable again? Just a few years ago, that question would have sounded almost absurd. The nation that had once terrified international football with ruthless efficiency suddenly appeared lost, stumbling through major tournaments without confidence, struggling to replace legendary generations, and searching desperately for an identity that seemed to disappear after years of dominance. Fans who had grown up believing Germany would always reach the latter stages of every competition watched painful eliminations unfold one after another, while newspapers debated whether the country's famous football machine had finally broken beyond repair. Coaches changed, tactical systems evolved, and new faces arrived, yet something essential still seemed to be missing, creating the uncomfortable feeling that Germany no longer frightened opponents before kickoff. Football history is filled with great teams that disappeared after reaching the summit, but Germany had never built its reputation on individual superstars alone. Other nations became famous because of extraordinary players capable of deciding matches through moments of genius, while Germany earned something far more intimidating. They developed a culture where the system always mattered more than the individual, where every generation inherited the same obsession with discipline, intelligent movement, and collective responsibility, allowing completely different squads to produce remarkably similar results across decades. That identity never relied on one striker, one midfielder, or one legendary captain. It relied on an idea, and ideas rarely disappear forever. The rebuilding process began quietly, almost invisibly, because genuine transformations rarely announce themselves with spectacular victories. Youth academies adjusted their priorities, placing greater emphasis on technical intelligence instead of physical superiority, while coaches throughout the country encouraged players to become comfortable in multiple positions rather than mastering only one role. Midfielders learned how to defend like defenders, defenders became expected to build attacks like playmakers, and forwards discovered that pressing without the ball could be just as valuable as scoring goals. None of these changes attracted international headlines because they unfolded gradually across training grounds rather than inside sold-out stadiums. Yet together, they laid the foundation for something much larger than a tactical adjustment. When Germany finally returned to the biggest stage, many opponents prepared for the familiar strengths they remembered from previous generations. They expected organization, discipline, and relentless work ethic, because those qualities had always defined German football. But they encountered something noticeably different. This new Germany still possessed remarkable structure, yet it now moved with a fluidity that previous teams rarely displayed. Fullbacks drifted effortlessly into midfield, central midfielders appeared unexpectedly inside attacking positions, and wide forwards constantly exchanged roles until defensive markers no longer knew whom they were supposed to follow. It looked less like a rigid machine and more like a perfectly synchronized organism capable of changing shape without losing balance. Perhaps the most remarkable transformation, however, had nothing to do with formations or individual quality. It was the speed of decision-making. Watch Germany closely, and one detail becomes impossible to ignore. Their players rarely hesitate. The moment possession changes hands, every teammate already seems to understand the next movement before the ball even reaches them, creating attacks that develop with astonishing rhythm, while opponents are still reorganizing after losing possession. Football often rewards technical brilliance, but at the highest level, the fastest team is rarely the one with the quickest legs. It is the one with the quickest ideas, and right now, Germany appears to think faster than almost everyone else. This becomes especially obvious during transitions, the chaotic moments that modern football values more than any other phase of play. Most teams require several seconds to reorganize after winning possession, allowing opponents enough time to recover defensive shape before genuine danger appears. Germany does the opposite. The instant they recover the ball, players explode into predetermined spaces with extraordinary confidence, as though the transition itself had already been rehearsed hundreds of times before the tournament even began. Every forward run creates another passing angle, every overlapping movement pulls defenders away from dangerous areas, and every supporting midfielder arrives precisely when the attack requires another option. To spectators, it resembles spontaneity. To coaches, it resembles months of meticulous preparation. That preparation explains why Germany's goals often look completely different, while secretly following the same principles. One attack begins through patient possession, another emerges from aggressive pressing, a third arrives after a lightning-fast counterattack. Yet beneath those contrasting sequences lies one identical philosophy. Germany never attacks randomly. Every movement serves another movement, every pass prepares the next pass, and every player understands how his positioning influences teammates several meters away. It is football stripped of unnecessary complexity until only the most efficient decisions remain, producing a style that appears simple on television while demanding extraordinary intelligence from every individual wearing the shirt. Opponents naturally attempt to respond. Some defend deeper, hoping to eliminate the dangerous spaces Germany exploits so effectively during transitions. Others press aggressively, believing early pressure might disrupt the rhythm before attacks fully develop. A few choose compact defensive blocks designed to frustrate possession and force Germany into wider areas. Yet with every new tactical approach, Germany appears strangely comfortable adapting its own solutions, refusing to become predictable because unpredictability has quietly become one of its greatest strengths. The same team that patiently circulates possession for 2 minutes can suddenly attack with breathtaking speed only seconds later, making it almost impossible for opponents to settle into a single defensive strategy. The most dangerous part of Germany's resurgence is not that they have started winning matches again. Football has always been unpredictable enough for any elite nation to enjoy brief periods of success. What truly worries the rest of the tournament is the growing feeling that Germany has rediscovered something much deeper than confidence. They have rediscovered clarity. Every player understands exactly what the team expects from him. Every movement seems connected to a larger objective, and every performance strengthens the collective belief that the system itself has become more powerful than any individual moment of brilliance. That is precisely why Germany suddenly feels different from many of the other favourites. They are no longer relying on spectacular goals, emotional comebacks, or isolated flashes of genius to survive difficult moments. They are controlling matches long before the decisive goals arrive, quietly forcing opponents to play at a rhythm Germany has carefully chosen, and by the time the scoreboard finally reflects that superiority, the tactical battle has often been decided for half an hour already. The goals may dominate the headlines, but they are only the final chapter of a much longer story. The real explanation for Germany's remarkable resurgence begins far away from the penalty area, hidden inside movements so subtle that millions of supporters never notice them. Yet without those invisible details, none of the spectacular finishes would ever exist. And once those details become impossible to ignore, one conclusion starts to emerge that every remaining team in the tournament would rather avoid. Germany isn't simply playing better football. They're making everyone else play Germany's football. If Germany's recent victories seem almost effortless, it is because most people are watching the final touch instead of everything that happens before it. Spectators remember the striker celebrating, the goalkeeper picking the ball out of the net, and the scoreboard changing once again. But coaches see something entirely different. They notice how Germany had already won the duel 30 seconds earlier, how one midfielder quietly drifted into space without attracting attention, how a fullback stepped into the centre at precisely the right moment, and how 3 different passing options suddenly appeared before the defence even realised danger existed. The goal itself becomes nothing more than the final consequence of dozens of invisible decisions that were executed with extraordinary precision. This is where Germany separates itself from almost every other team remaining in the tournament. Many elite nations possess world-class attackers capable of producing magic from almost nothing. But Germany rarely depends on miracles, because its attacks are designed to manufacture certainty instead of hope. Every player constantly scans the field before receiving possession, already calculating 2 or 3 possible solutions before the ball even reaches his feet, allowing passes to be played almost instinctively while opponents are still processing the previous movement. It creates the strange illusion that Germany always has more time than everyone else, when in reality they simply use the available time far more efficiently. Perhaps the most fascinating part of Germany's system is how every player appears willing to sacrifice individual recognition for collective superiority. Modern football often revolves around star players demanding freedom to express themselves, yet Germany has quietly built a squad where movement without the ball frequently matters more than movement with it. One forward deliberately drifts away from goal, not because he expects to receive the pass, but because his run drags a defender several meters out of position. A midfielder chooses the safer pass rather than the spectacular one because he understands it will create a better opportunity 3 passes later. Even defenders regularly abandon traditional positions, stepping confidently into midfield to create numerical superiority before calmly retreating once possession changes hands. It resembles a perfectly rehearsed orchestra where every musician understands that harmony is more important than individual performance. The pressing system reveals that philosophy even more clearly. Unlike teams that chase possession with endless energy, Germany presses with remarkable intelligence, almost refusing to waste unnecessary movement. They rarely sprint without purpose, because every pressing action is connected to another teammate positioned only a few meters away, ensuring that one player's aggression never leaves dangerous gaps behind him. Opponents often believe they have escaped the first wave of pressure, only to discover that Germany had anticipated exactly where the escape route would lead, calmly waiting with another player already occupying the next passing lane. Instead of reacting to the opponent, Germany quietly dictates where the opponent is allowed to play, transforming what appears to be defensive football into one of the most sophisticated forms of attacking control. That ability becomes devastating immediately after losing possession. Most teams require several seconds to reorganize once the ball changes hands, but Germany treats those first moments as the most valuable part of the entire match. The nearest players instantly collapse toward the ball, while teammates behind them close passing angles with astonishing discipline, creating what coaches often describe as a pressing trap rather than a simple press. The objective is not necessarily to win the ball immediately. It is to force one predictable decision, because once Germany knows where the next pass is going, recovering possession becomes dramatically easier. The opponent feels surrounded without even realizing how the trap was constructed. Another reason Germany currently looks so dominant is their extraordinary positional flexibility. Traditional football assigned every player a clearly defined role that rarely changed during the match. But this German team seems almost impossible to label. Fullbacks become midfielders during possession. Defensive midfielders quietly drop between central defenders to begin attacks. Attacking midfielders drift toward the wings, while wingers suddenly appear inside the penalty area. None of these movements happen randomly. Every rotation is carefully timed so that one player occupies the space another has just abandoned, maintaining perfect balance while constantly forcing defenders to reconsider their marking responsibilities. Eventually, opponents stop following players and begin defending empty spaces, which is exactly the uncertainty Germany wants to create. The psychological effect of this constant movement cannot be underestimated. Defending against Germany is mentally exhausting because the problems never stop changing. One minute you are closing passing lanes against patient possession, the next you are chasing runners during a lightning-fast transition, and moments later Germany slows the tempo again as though nothing happened. There is almost no opportunity for defenders to settle into a comfortable rhythm because the match continuously shifts between controlled patience and explosive acceleration. Over 90 minutes, those repeated adjustments slowly drain concentration And football at the highest level is often decided not by physical fatigue alone, but by the first lapse in mental discipline. This explains why Germany continues creating high-quality chances against opponents who appear well-organized for large portions of the match. Defensive structures rarely collapse because of one catastrophic mistake. They collapse because Germany patiently asks the same difficult questions over and over again, until one defender hesitates, one midfielder arrives half a second late, or one passing lane remains open just long enough for a decisive through ball. The attack may last only a few seconds, yet the mistake itself has usually been developing for 20 minutes through relentless pressure, intelligent positioning, and constant manipulation of defensive shape. Opposing coaches recognize exactly what is happening, yet finding a solution has become increasingly complicated. Press too aggressively, and Germany calmly bypasses the pressure before attacking the enormous spaces left behind. Defend too deep, and Germany patiently dominates possession until those defensive lines gradually stretch apart. Attempt to match Germany's intensity, and players often become exhausted long before the final whistle. Refuse to engage, and Germany quietly controls both the tempo and territory of the match. Every tactical answer seems to create another tactical problem, leaving opponents trapped inside a game that Germany appears to understand better than anyone else. Perhaps that is why Germany no longer feels like a team enjoying temporary momentum. They feel like a system reaching maturity after years of careful evolution, where every performance reinforces the principles that produced the previous one. The goals are spectacular, the victories convincing, and the confidence unmistakable. But beneath all of that lies something far more dangerous. Germany has rediscovered an identity powerful enough to function regardless of the opponent standing across the pitch. And if that identity continues evolving at the same pace, the biggest challenge facing the rest of the tournament may no longer be stopping Germany from scoring. It may be preventing Germany from controlling the entire match before the first goal is even scored. The deeper Germany advances into the tournament, the more the conversation begins to change. At first, the headlines focus on the scorelines, the number of goals, and the growing confidence surrounding a team that suddenly looks capable of beating anyone. A few days later, however, the discussion quietly shifts towards something far more significant, as coaches, analysts, and former players stop asking how Germany keeps winning and begin asking how anyone is supposed to stop them. That subtle change in perspective is often the clearest sign that a great team has become something even more dangerous. Because once opponents start building their own plans around avoiding your strengths, rather than exploiting your weaknesses, the psychological battle has already begun, long before kickoff. Every remaining contender watches Germany with increasing attention. Brazil studies the speed of their transitions, searching for moments where technical superiority might slow the relentless rhythm. Argentina examines the compactness of Germany's midfield, looking for spaces that perhaps only the world's finest playmakers could exploit. France analyzes every pressing sequence frame by frame, hoping its extraordinary athleticism might disrupt the German machine before it reaches full speed. Spain focuses on possession, believing that controlling the ball could reduce Germany's greatest weapon by denying them transitions altogether. Each nation sees a different challenge, because Germany attacks every opponent in a slightly different way, adapting without ever abandoning the principles that define its identity. Perhaps the greatest compliment any football team can receive is forcing elite opponents to stop thinking about themselves and start thinking almost exclusively about you. That is exactly what Germany has accomplished. Instead of asking how they can express their own football, rival coaches increasingly ask how they can survive Germany's football. Entire tactical meetings become centered around preventing overloads, slowing transitions, escaping the first wave of pressure, or protecting vulnerable spaces behind the defensive line. Every adjustment designed to neutralize Germany inevitably requires sacrificing something else, and football history repeatedly shows that the strongest teams are often those capable of forcing impossible choices rather than impossible plays. The players themselves seem almost untouched by the growing expectations surrounding them. Watch Germany after scoring, and the celebrations rarely become extravagant. There are smiles, embraces, and obvious satisfaction. Yet only moments later, attention immediately returns to positioning, communication, and preparation for the next phase of the match. That mentality has defined Germany for generations, but this version appears even calmer than many of its predecessors. Confidence is clearly present, yet it never transforms into complacency, because every player seems fully aware that the system only functions if every individual continues respecting it. No one behaves as though the tournament has already been won, and perhaps that is precisely why the rest of the football world is becoming increasingly nervous. History offers countless reminders that spectacular starts guarantee absolutely nothing. Every World Cup has produced teams that looked unstoppable during the opening stages, before collapsing under the pressure of the knockout rounds, where one mistake, one moment of brilliance, or one unexpected tactical adjustment can erase weeks of dominance in less than 90 minutes. Germany understands that reality better than almost anyone, because it has experienced both sides of football's unforgiving nature. The same nation that lifted trophies through relentless consistency has also endured shocking eliminations that reminded everyone how quickly international football can humble even the strongest favourites. Those painful memories now serve as quiet protection against overconfidence. Yet there is one crucial difference between this German team and many previous contenders who faded too early. They are not depending on temporary form or extraordinary finishing that may eventually disappear. Their greatest strength lies inside repeatable habits, intelligent positioning, and collective understanding, qualities that rarely fluctuate as dramatically as confidence or individual brilliance. Even on days when the finishing is less clinical, Germany continues controlling territory, dictating tempo, and generating opportunities, because those advantages originate from the system itself rather than isolated moments of inspiration. That consistency makes them frightening, because sustainable football almost always outlasts emotional football over the course of a long tournament. The influence of Germany's resurgence extends beyond the current competition. Youth coaches throughout Europe are already studying the balance between positional discipline and fluid movement, searching for ways to recreate the harmony that allows Germany to remain organised without becoming predictable. Tactical analysts are producing endless breakdowns, explaining how players constantly exchange positions without sacrificing defensive security, while clubs begin asking whether the future of elite football belongs not to specialists confined to one role, but to complete footballers capable of solving multiple problems within the same match. Germany is no longer simply winning games. They are quietly influencing how the next generation may choose to play the game. For supporters, however, the experience feels much simpler. Every match carries the growing expectation that something special is unfolding, that each performance adds another chapter to a story nobody expected to witness only a short time ago. Stadiums fill with anticipation rather than hope, because belief has gradually replaced optimism, and millions of viewers who once questioned Germany's future now find themselves waiting to see how far this remarkable transformation can continue. The excitement no longer comes from wondering whether Germany will compete. It comes from discovering whether anyone has found an answer before it is too late. Perhaps that is why Germany looks so different right now. It is not merely the goals, the victories, or the tactical sophistication that separate them from the rest of the field. It is the extraordinary sense of inevitability beginning to surround every performance. Great teams often create moments of brilliance. Truly exceptional teams create expectations of brilliance, reaching a point where opponents almost anticipate being outplayed before the match has even settled into its rhythm. Germany appears to be approaching that territory once again, and history suggests that when belief spreads through an entire squad with this level of conviction, stopping it becomes exponentially more difficult. Whether this journey ultimately ends with another World Cup trophy remains uncertain, because football has always reserved the right to surprise even its greatest champions. One unfortunate injury, one inspired opponent, or one unpredictable evening can alter the course of history forever. But regardless of what happens next, one reality has already become impossible to ignore. Germany is no longer rebuilding. Germany is no longer searching for an identity. Germany has rediscovered the qualities that once made the entire football world measure itself against them. And perhaps the most unsettling thought for every nation still dreaming of lifting the trophy is this: if this isn't even the finished version of Germany, the rest of the world may already be running out of time.